Right. So last time we were looking at parameterized constructors. So this is a constructor that consists of parameters, and these are the parameters that we have. And this is how the assignment is going to be done. We are assigning values to these class variables, and whatever is going to be written inside the parameterized constructor will be assigned to the corresponding class variables. Like here, 100 is going to be passed on to imp ID, and Salah is going to be passed on to imp name, and address Egypt is going to be passed on to address, and 28 is going to be passed on to age. The same applies for the object M1. And if we run the program, it is going to give us this, right? Employee ID 100, name Mohamed Salah, address Egypt, age 28, and the same applies for Sadio Mane, Senegal 29, right? So this is how parameterized constructors work. Now we want to investigate some of the properties of these parameterized constructors. Let's say here I decide to just write 2 parameters. As you can see, the compiler is already complaining. There is no argument given that corresponds to the required formal parameter add of employees, right? Which means the problem is that there are not enough parameters, because according to the definition, the declaration of this constructor, it takes in 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes 4 parameters. Yet when we were instantiating our object, we used only 2 parameters, which is a problem, right? Which is a problem. So what do you do now? In order to fix this problem, if you want a constructor that only takes 2 arguments or 2 parameters, you have to create it, right? So let's do this. Let's do this, right? Let's do this. Then we remove this. And here we are left with this, right? Such that if we try to run it, this is what it is going to give us, right? For the second object, the ID was 111, and the name was money. And since we did not pass anything, and since we created the constructor in such a way that it did not take all the 4 parameters, default values are going to be passed onto address. That's why we have a now value here. And for age, that's why we have a 0. So this is how these work, right? So this shows us that when you are passing values to a parameterized constructor, you should pass the exact number of values. And another thing that we have learned is that you can create as many constructors as you want in one program, which means a class can have as many constructors as possible, right? That's how these constructors work. So right now we want to look at another type of constructor, which is known as the copy constructor. The copy constructor. This constructor is used to copy the data of an existing object into a newly created object. So that's how the constructor works. For example, here, right? Let's just change this. Let's just make some changes here. I want to make some changes to this code to demonstrate how the copy constructor works, right? This code, we're going to change it, right? So here we are going to declare an object. Employees, we're going to declare an object. We can call it temp. The object, no, not temp. Let's just call it obj temp. It's our temporary object. since it only exists when the constructor is running, right? So this is how we are going to pass our variables. We are just going to copy this. It's going to copy this, and instead of ID here, we write the name of the object, obj temp dot obj temp dot emp id. Here obj temp dot enum. Here obj temp dot address. Obj temp dot h. Right? So this is our copy constructor. Now we want to see how we are going to implement the copy constructor, right? So if you want to implement a copy constructor, you have to write the name of, you have to pass the object that you want to copy from, right? So this is the object. So when we run the program, this obj temp is going to be emp, which is this object. So this object has got all these values. So which means all these values are going to be copied, right, to this, such that when we invoke the display emp details function from the copied constructor, which is emp1, the object which is the copy constructor, which is emp1, it is going to print the same details, right? In order to avoid confusion, let me do this. Let me just highlight this code, comment this code, so that it doesn't run, right? So that the code doesn't run, right? So now what I want to do now is I want to run this. I want you to see what is going to happen. You see, everything that we have passed on to this object has been copied to this object, right, via the copy constructor. So that's how the copy constructor works. So next we want to look at a static constructor. We want to see how the static constructor works. So that's what we're going to do in the next class.